As I promised, we'll start simple with this small butterfly, and we start by the contours usually, and then we'll fill. So I'll just start with the big purple parts, and we have to decide if we want to go horizontally or vertically. I decided to go horizontally for those big purple parts, and then the next is to decide where you want to start. Remember, you should start somewhere where you can hide the beginning thread and then hide the closing one. Another important thing is that you should be able to find a position to start. Here I was doing this butterfly on a project that I had already done the big bear, and this line here was the middle, so it was easier for me to count from that line. So I decided to start on the butterfly on the very top there, just so I could count in reference to the line that was marking the center of my work. So here's the work I was doing, and the green line was marking the middle. So I just counted from the yellow umbrella down how many spaces I had to, and I'm starting just as I showed on the basic videos. Leaving everything half done and then going forward, and you can keep looking at the pattern on the right. So here we come to a point that when I do this half point, I kind of move away from the point of contact to the next line. When this happens, it's no problem, just completely finish that stitch, and then you reach the point of contact where you can go down to the next line. And I promise this will work. And here the very opposite thing happened, that I already reached the point of contact with the next line before I even did half of the stitch. So in that case I have to move on and leave the stitch completely undone. So it will require more attention when we come back to remember where that stitch was supposed to be. Other than that, the rest is very simple. It's just keep going with the half points following the pattern. And when we get to the end, we just start going back. And it always works perfectly that you finish one stitch where you're supposed to start the next. The only thing to really pay attention is here. I'll come out with the needle and I may not remember where my stitch was supposed to go, because this is a point of contact with 3 different empty squares. So I just look at the pattern, I see that it was supposed to go to the right, and then I do the half, finish that one, and now I'm perfectly at the position to finish the stitch above it. And that one that I fully finished when I was going down, now I just keep it perfectly. It just always works out. And then when I finish here, I still have a little bit to go, because I did not want to start at an end, because then I have to start and finish on the same stitch. So I started on a point that I did everything to the right, and now I'm doing everything to the left. And when I finish, I have the option of hiding the thread to the left, because to the right it's already the thread I started with. And I'm using 3 threads here so that my X's are so full that I can keep going with the thread as many stitches as I want to convince myself it's well secured, and it won't show. You can't see where I hide the thread because my X is so full. So you have to choose the number of threads according to the size of your fabric, and in this case the squares are quite large, so I'm using 3 threads. So the purple contour to the right wing is done. So now I just go to the left, I start it all over again. I just chose a point to start where I knew I would have at least 2 stitches to hide the beginning thread, and you'll see that at the end I'll also have 2 stitches to hide the ending thread. Other than that, it's exactly the same. So I reached the end, I reached the point where I started, so just go back. And when I finished, to my left are the stitches where I hid the beginning thread, so I'll just go down and hide the ending thread on a different set of stitches, and done. So now I have to do the green part, the green contour, and you can see that I'm actually doing it vertically now because it just seemed like it would be easier. There were a lot more sequences of points if I did it this way. There were more bars vertical than horizontal. This means that the back of my work will have stitches going up and going down, but you see that it's not messy. It's your choice. If you want, you could just have a little bit more trouble and do all stitches horizontally. And here's a trick. When I finished, I didn't actually cut the thread to start again, because there was only one stitch, one square separating one side from the other. And if it's only one square, I can actually jump that behind the fabric, and in the end it will look just like a stitch, just like the back of one stitch. So that was just kind of a shortcut there. And now I'm doing the stem, and I have 2 browns to go, and you see that again I chose to do them vertically, so perpendicular to the direction I had started. And I'll show you in a second how the back looks. It doesn't bother me that some are horizontal and some are vertical, as long as I don't have pieces of thread hanging on the back, but that's a personal choice. You see, that's how the back looks, and you can see some in one direction, some in another direction, but it still looks pretty clean to me. Now you have to fill, and I'll show 2 different ways to fill. One is you can choose a line that is a point of contact for a column that is a point of contact for every single line. So here I'm starting at this point, and you see that I do my half points to the left, and then instead of jumping to the next line, I come back and finish my points. And then I jump to the next line, and on the next line I do my stitch to the right, come back finishing them, then I do my stitch to the left. And I can keep doing that. I do each row 1 time, but then half of the rows are done in one direction and half of the rows are done in another direction. I am doing this just to show you. I really don't like the way it looks when I do this. So instead, I will start on the very end of a row, and when I'm done with the half stitch of that row, instead of coming back, I jump to the next row, and then I do the half stitch of the next row. And then when I get to the end, I jump to the next row again. So basically I will fill the whole wing with half stitches before I start coming back and finishing those stitches. The end is a lot more neat because you have every single stitch going in the same direction. You see when I'm done with the half stitch, except for a very few stitches on the end that you may have to do in a different direction. I'm gonna show when I get there. And also it's easier because you don't have one row that is super bulky and finished while another row is completely empty of thread. This way you do all rows half. You see I reach the end and everything is on the same direction. And then I start going back again line by line. This looks way better finished. And here I used up my thread so much that I don't even have a thread long enough for me to go around with the needle, so I just put the needle first, then thread the needle and pull the needle. This happens sometimes when we are at the very end and we don't have enough thread to really finish it, but we don't want to thread the needle again. So we just kind of keep going, putting the needle first and the thread later. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.